Alright boys and girls, so we're finally back in knife ability test, and in today's video we're actually going to compare Hyperbeam, Custombeam, and of course Deathbeam with each other, and we're going to try to figure out which one is the best and which one might be the worst, or if they're maybe all the same. That's going to be the goal for this episode, so without further ado, let's start today's video. Alright boys and girls, so there we go, we joined knife ability test, and of course now you might be wondering, Ivis, how are you going to compare those three abilities in today's episode, because previously some people were not really satisfied with your comparison. So in today's episode we're going to do it a little bit differently. I've actually taken some of the criticism that you guys left in the comments down below, so some people actually suggested that I should have actually compared the overall sizing and the hitboxes of each beam, which we're going to do in today's episode, and of course some people also said that I should have compared the speed a little bit better. So in today's video we're going to do the exact same thing that we did for my previous video where we compared no scope and of course laser. So yeah, let's just do that. For the testing grounds in today's episode we're going to play on classic, and of course we're going to go right here to this spot. We're going to use this spot down there, and we're always going to place my alt account over there, and then we're going to compare the speed and of course the overall length of the beams, which I did in my previous episode. And after that we're going to compare the hitboxes, or actually we're going to start with the hitboxes I think, and then do the rest of the comparisons. So for hitboxes we're going to stand right here, always in the exact same location, and then we're going to throw the Deathbeam, Hyperbeam, and of course Custombeam at my second account, and we're going to move closer and see if the hitbox changes or if the hitboxes might be the same. So let's just do that really quickly. So there we go, you can see that my alt account is now in place, and what we're going to do, we're actually going to go back into third person, and now we're going to throw the Deathbeam, of course, which we have to equip first of all. So there we go. And now we're going to see if there's any difference with the overall hitboxes. So we're going to start right there on this little stone. Then we're going to move closer, and you can see that was the hitbox. I'm going to zoom it in closer for you and slow it down so you can see the overall hitbox. So we're going to move back to this stone right there, which I hopefully can remember. And now let's switch to Hyperbeam. So I think it was around like this stone, hopefully. And now let's get back the alt account. As you can see, the alt account is back in place. So there we go. We're going to start with Hyperbeam now. Number 1, number 2, number 3. We're going to move a little bit closer. Let's move like that. And you can see the hitbox looked exactly the same. I'm going to overlay those two right here and compare those side by side so you can see if the overall hitbox was the same or not. I think it's pretty much the same. It looked to me the same. And now of course that's compared with Custombeam, since that's the last beam that we have in the game. And it's going to be quite interesting, but I'm pretty certain it's going to be the exact same as the previous one. After that, we're going to do length comparison and of course the speed comparison, so that's going to be quite interesting. So my alt account is back in place. All we have to do now is equip, of course, right here the Custombeam. We're going to change the color to something very easily to see, so we're going to go for like a cyan right here. There you go, and now let's just equip it really quickly, because I forgot to equip it. There you go. And now let's do the exact same thing. So 1, 2, moving closer. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Alright, that's very interesting. Let's move a tiny bit closer. And it looked like it's pretty much the same as the previous ones. I assume that the 2.0 hitboxes are a little bit more extended on the lower part of the arms, which is quite interesting. I mean, it makes sense since the lower part of the arms extend. So maybe we should get a different type of body to compare this a little bit better. But to me, they look pretty much the exact same. Let's just switch the body maybe. So there we go, I've switched to a body type now, and one thing I have to mention, once again, special thanks to my friend Wrld for borrowing me the custom beam right here. I really appreciate it, and without you I wouldn't have been able to do this comparison, so thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. So now let's start over once again. We're going to put it very close to the arm right there, as you can see, and we're going to see as soon as we can hit the body right there, so should be able to hit it right there. As you can see, it's a little bit easier to see this with the 1.0 type, and of course with the standard kind of blocky avatar. So let's compare this now to Hyperbeam, of course, and after this we're going to compare this, of course, to Custombeam. So there we go, my alt account is back in place. And what did we just notice? The hitbox is exactly the same, and of course the overall size of the beams is not really relevant to the hitbox. And yeah, that's pretty much the comparison that people have wanted between Hyperbeam and Deathbeam. So yeah, the overall size of the hitbox is exactly the same. So it's quite interesting. Now let's compare this, of course, with Custombeam. So there we go, we're back in the exact same location. We have Custombeam equipped. We have currently equipped the cyan color for Custombeam. So let's just do the comparison right here. And once again, we see this hitbox is exactly the same. So now let's move on to the next comparison, which is going to be the speed comparison. This one is going to be a little bit tricky because all of these abilities are very fast. So apologies if the overall speed isn't as accurate as it could maybe be. So yeah, just keep that in mind. For this comparison, we're gonna move right here to this stone. I think that's actually the perfect comparison point. So yeah, let's just put my alt account back right there, and then let's throw each beam at the alt account after we count down from 3 to 1, and well, hopefully we can get a good comparison. So as you can see, my alt account is back in place right there. Now we're going to switch to Deathbeam, of course. We're gonna count down from 3 to 1, 3 to 1. And there you go. That's how fast it was. You can see it on screen right now. It was probably less than a second. And yeah, that's pretty darn fast. So let's just move the alt account back into the same location as previously. And then let's compare it with the next ability, which is Hyperbeam. So there we go. Alt account is back in place. Now let's just equip Hyperbeam. So 3, 2, 1, go. And there you go. That's how fast it was. You can see it was very, very fast. Probably less than 1 second once again. And last but not least, of course, we're going to do it for Custombeam. And that's most likely going to be the exact same. There might be some slight differences with the times simply because I'm not going to be able to measure this exactly on the millisecond. So just keep that in mind. There's probably going to be some slight differences between the overall times, but it's going to be very, very minimal. So there we go. We now have Custombeam equipped. So let's just try this out. 3, 2, 1. And there you go, that was the time for Custombeam, and now on screen you can see hopefully a side-by-side comparison between all three of those, and well, we're most likely going to notice it's exactly the same time or very, very close to each other, so I think there's no real differences between the sizing of these. The last thing we probably have to test is the overall length of the beams itself, which is going to be quite difficult or quite challenging to measure, but as far as I'm concerned, all of these beams have the same length. We're going to switch the map for this, and we're going to go pretty interesting map. We're going to compare on Dust, Hyperbeam, Deathbeam, and of course the last one, Custombeam. So yeah, I think this is going to be quite an interesting comparison. What we're going to do, we're going to place my alt account right behind that. Of course, we're going to put ourselves right here, and then, well, we're going to do the comparison for the length. The last thing we will compare actually is going to be how many objects it can go through, so that comparison might be quite interesting as well. Hopefully we can just use this map as well for this, so it's going to be quite interesting. I think there's no limitations as far as I'm concerned, but yeah. We're most likely going to figure this out. So my alt account is right now in place, and let's just see the length comparison. We're actually going to move a little bit forward, and it's going to be right there, so let's just switch. There you go. And that's Custombeam. So now let's switch to Hyperbeam, of course, and let's see if it also reaches that far. Should be able to do that because this map isn't that far apart, I guess, but that's like one of the furthest maps I think we really have in this game, if I'm not completely wrong, so yeah, I'm pretty certain most of these will pass the test. So there we go, my alt account is back in place. I think we switch now to Hyperbeam, so let's just do the same comparison. No problem at all. And now the last comparison, which is going to be fairly simple as well. We're going to use Deathbeam now, so there you go. Last but not least. And Deathbeam, of course, reached it easily as well. So now we're going to move actually back there, and then we're going to place my alt account in a prepared position, hopefully, and then we're going to throw it through multiple walls, and we're going to see if we can actually still kill my alt account. We're going to use all of these walls right here in our way. We're going to throw it right there, and we're going to place my alt account right there, so hopefully we can do a pretty easy comparison and see if there's any limitations with the walls. It's not that many walls as we previously checked. I think in my previous episode we compared it 4 walls and then a few objects as well within the way. This is not really possible on this map, but I cannot really get classic legacy map to work right now. So I hope that's okay. I hope this map will still do the comparison fine. So yeah, I'll just do the test now. I think it's best if we aim a little bit lower. Okay, this is going to be quite challenging. Simply because in third person, I think we have to aim like this. Let me just do a little test throw right there. Okay, it definitely goes through the walls, so we can just do it right there. And you see, worked perfectly fine. There's no problems with Deathbeam right there through all those walls. And now we're going to do the exact same thing, of course, with the next ability. So my alt account is back in place, so now let's switch to Hyperbeam. There you go, and now let's do the same thing once again, and you can see no problem through 3 walls right here, so that's quite interesting. And now the last one, of course, which is going to be Custombeam, so that one will most likely do this as well without any problems, and yeah. I think that's going to be it for the comparison then. The last thing we will do is join a public server and then play with all of those abilities right here and just have some fun. So no problem at all, let's just join a public server now and then let's have some fun. So there we go, we joined the public server now, and of course now we're going to play with all 3 of these abilities. First things first, we're going to start with Deathbeam, then we're going to use of course the Hyperbeam, and last but not least of course Custombeam. We're going to try to match these with some knives so we have some matching combinations. Since we're using Deathbeam we have the color red, so we're going to use the ruby short knife right here, which is going to be pretty interesting. And there we go, perfect. We're doing quite alright so far. Let's see if we can get a few kills. Would be quite nice overall. server's still quite full, so that's not too bad, I guess. So you can see Deathbeam is pretty cool. It looks quite nice. It has no problems, of course. Pretty much all of these abilities are the exact same. There's no differences between the abilities themselves. The only difference, of course, is going to be the visual difference. So just keep that in mind. The only thing these abilities have as a difference is, of course, the visual appearance. So just please keep that in mind, of course. I just wanted to mention that as the final conclusion. All of these abilities are pretty much the same. And I think this comparison was pretty important because a lot of people always wonder which ability is the best. Is there any differences between these abilities? The only difference, of course, now is the appearance and the price tag, because Deathbeam cost, I think, 6,000 gems. You then have Hyperbeam, which costs, I think, 15,000 gems. And then you have, well, Custombeam, which is now worth over 100 something thousand gems. So it's pretty pricey. I have no clue how much it is. I have not checked any of the value lists so far. So no clue. I think it's very pricey. That's all I've been told. Yeah, I'm gonna give Custombeam, of course, back to my friend. I think that makes sense. So now let's switch, of course, to Hyperbeam. We're gonna use this one with the Rainbow Shard one because, well, you know, Hyperbeam is a Rainbow Knife ability. And then, of course, Rainbow Shard Knife is, well, Rainbow. So I think they go really well together. I think it's a very nice knife combo right here and ability combo. So I think that's pretty cool overall. Last but not least, of course, we're going to use Custombeam, and the best thing about Custombeam is it goes pretty much with any knife because you can just adjust the color to the knife, which is very, very nice, I guess. So yeah, it's going to be quite interesting. So there you go, very nice. Let's see if we can get another 10 kill streak. I think that would be the best thing right there. We're doing quite alright so far, and we're actually up to a 20 kill streak, so I guess that's another 10 kill streak. So not too bad. What we're gonna do, we're gonna actually hide now, and we're gonna switch to the last ability most likely, which is going to be Custombeam. So let's just do that really quickly. There you go. We're gonna switch the color. We're gonna go with maybe like a pinkish color, and we're gonna use maybe the arrow knife. I haven't been using that one too much recently, so it's going to be quite interesting. There you go, very nice. I think that one is quite cool. Very, very nice abilities. I think if you just search for something that's better than no scope and laser, you might just want to go for normal Deathbeam since it only costs 6,000 gems in comparison, and it's pretty much the exact same. There's no real difference besides the visual appearance, of course, like I said already, and I think, yeah, it's pretty good. Deathbeam is really good for how much it is, pretty effective, and since there's, like I said, no other difference between those. So I think on this note, we're probably going to end the video. We did really good. We got with all of these a 10 kill streak, I think. So that shows probably that these are pretty good, I think. Anyways, I think that's going to be it for this video. Like I said, it was quite fun. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have any suggestions on how I can compare these a little bit better in the near future, feel free to comment it down below. I would really like to hear your feedback and your criticism. I think that's very, very important for these type of videos, so I can improve these and compare these items or abilities a little bit better. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope you had a little bit of fun, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.